that which is tangible, or as that which is sensitive and coherent, or that which is energizing. It is that intelligent activity which has been clumsily called awareness. It is the capacity of awareness itself, involving as it does sensitive response to environment, and the apparatus of that response, the divine duality of the soul. It is finally the sum total of that which is contacted and known. It is that of which the sensitive apparatus becomes aware. This, as we shall see later, is a gradually growing realization, shifting ever into more esoteric and inner realms. These three aspects are seen in man, the divine unit of life. First he recognizes them in himself. Then he sees them in every form in his environment, and finally he learns to relate these aspects of himself to the similar aspects in other forms of divine manifestation. Correct relation between forms will result in the harmonizing and right adjustment of physical plane life. Correct response to one's environment will result in correct rapport with the soul aspect, hidden in every form, and will produce right relations between the various parts of the inner nervous structure, to be found in every kingdom of nature, subhuman and superhuman. This is as yet practically unknown but is rapidly coming into recognition, and when it is proven and realized it will be discovered that therein lies the basis of brotherhood and of unity. As the liver, the heart, the lungs, the stomach, and other organs in the body are separate in existence, and in function and yet are unified and brought into relation through the medium of the nervous system throughout the body, so will it be found that in the world such organisms as the kingdoms in nature have their separate life and functions yet are correlated and coordinated by a vast intricate sensory system which is sometimes called the soul of all things, the anima mundi, the underlying consciousness. In dealing with the triplicities so often used when speaking of deity, such as spirit, soul, and body, life, consciousness, and form, it is of value to remember that they refer to differentiations of the one life, and that the more of these triplicities with which one can familiarize oneself, the more one will be in rapport with the wider circle of men. But when one is dealing with things occult and subjective, and when the subject about which one writes deals with the undefinable, then difficulty is encountered. It is no difficult matter to describe a man's personal appearance, his clothing, his form, and the things with which he is surrounded. Language suffices satisfactorily to deal with the concrete, and with the world of form. But when one endeavors to convey an idea of his quality, character, and nature, one is immediately faced with the problem of the unknown, with that undefinable unseen part which we sense, but which remains in a large sense unrevealed, and unrealized even by the man himself. How then shall we describe him through the medium of language? 13. If this is so of man, how much greater is the difficulty when we seek through words to express that inexpressible sum total of which the terms spirit, soul, and body are regarded as the main component differentiations? How shall we define that undefinable life that men have, for the sake of understanding, limited and separated into a trinity of aspects, or persons, calling the whole by the name of God? Yet where this differentiation of God into a trinity is universal and age-long in use, where every people ancient and modern employ the same triplicity of ideation, to express an intuitive realization, there is warrant for the usage. That some day we may think and express the truth differently may indeed be so, but for the average thinker of today the terms spirit, soul, and body stand for the aggregate of divine manifestation, both in the deity of the universe and in that lesser divinity, man himself. As this treatise is intended for the thinking human being, and not for the crystallized theologians, or the theoretically biased scientists, we will adhere to the well-used terminology and seek to understand what has lain back of the phrases in which man has sought to explain God himself. God is spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth, states one of the scriptures of the world. Man became a living soul, is to be found in another place in the same scripture. I pray God your whole spirit and soul and body may be preserved blameless, said a great initiate of the White Lodge. And the greatest of them all yet present with us in physical form on earth, repeated the words of an earlier sage when he said, I have said ye are gods, and ye are all the children of the Most High. In those words the triplicity of man, his divinity and his relationship to the life in whom he lives and moves, and has his being, is touched upon from the Christian standpoint, and all the great religions deal in analogous phrases with that relationship. A. Spirit, life, energy. The word spirit is applied to that undefinable, elusive, essential impulse or life which is the cause of all manifestation. It is the breath of life and is that rhythmic inflow of vital energy which manifests in its turn as the attractive force, as the consciousness, or soul, and is the sum total of atomic substance. It is the correspondence in the great existence, or macrocosm of that which in the little existence or microcosm is the vital inspiring factor which we call the life of man. This is indicated by the breath in his body, which is abstracted or withdrawn when the life course is run. What this something is, who shall say? We trace it back to the soul or consciousness aspect, and from the soul to the spirit, as we call the three aspects of the one breath. But what these words really signify, who has the courage to declare? We call this unknown something by differing names, according to our particular school of thought. We seek to express it in words, and then by call it spirit, the one life, the monad, energy. Again we must remember that understanding, as to the nature of this one life, is purely relative. Those who are engrossed in the form side of existence think in terms of physical vitality, of feeling, impulse, or of mental force and do not pass beyond that unified life consciousness of which all the above are differentiations. Those again who are interested in the more metaphysical approach, and in the soul life more than in the form aspect express their concept in terms of soul manifestation and passing beyond the personal selfish reactions of the body nature think in terms of life, in terms of quality, of group will or power, group coordination or love wisdom, and of group intelligence, or knowledge, covering all by the generic term of brotherhood. But even that is found to be separative, through the separation into larger units than the lower is 14 capable of grasping. Therefore the initiate, especially after the third initiation, begins to think even more synthetically and to express truth to himself in terms of spirit, life, the one. These terms mean to him something significant, but something so far removed from the concept of ordinary thinking humanity that it is needless for me to enlarge further upon it. This brings me to a point that should be dealt with here, prior to any further expansion of our subject. In the treatise on cosmic fire and in the above passage it frequently appears that teaching is carried forward to a certain point, and then dropped with the statement that, owing to the point in evolution of the average man, his reaction to truth and the reaction of the disciple student or the initiate will differ. This is necessarily so. Each will read into the words his own state of consciousness. Each will fail to interpret in terms of the more advanced reaction of those on a higher stage of the ladder of evolution. The average reader, however, objects to being forced to recognize wider points of view than his own, and the phraseology which says, "It is needless to enlarge on this for it would only be understood by the initiate," serves only to aggravate him, tends to make him believe that evasion is intended, and that the writer, having got out of his depth, is seeking to save his face by some such statement. Just as a scientific treatise would prove meaningless and a mere jumble of words to the average grammar school child, but would carry a clear definition and meaning to experts in the subject owing to training and mental development, so there are those to whom the subject of the soul and its nature as dealt with in such an instruction as this is as clear and lucid as current literature is to the average reader. and the bestsellers, as you call them, to the general public. Equally, though fewer in number, there are those advanced souls to whom the spirit and its nature is also a rational and understandable subject, to be appreciated and comprehended through the medium of the soul and its powers, just as it is possible to arrive at an understanding of the soul through the medium of the mind, correctly employed. On a lower level altogether, we know it is easy to understand the nature of the physical body through a study and right use of the desire nature. It is a form of pride, and a refusal to recognize one's temporary limitations that awakens in readers a dislike for phrases which aptly and truly say, "When you are further developed, you will understand the above." This should be made clear. To the master of the wisdom, the nature of the spirit, or that positive center of life which every form hides, is no more a mystery than is the nature of the soul to the esoteric psychologist. The source of the one life, the plane, or state from which that life emanates, is the great hidden mystery to the members of the hierarchy of adepts. The nature of spirit, its quality and type of cosmic energy, its rate of vibration and its basic cosmic differentiations are the study of initiates above the third degree and the subject of their investigations. They bring to that study a fully developed intuition, plus that mental interpretive capacity which their cycle of incarnation has developed. They employ the awakened and developed inner light of their souls to interpret and comprehend that life which, divorced from the world of form, persists on the higher levels of consciousness and penetrates into our solar system from some exterior center of being. They throw this light, which is in them and which they manipulate and use, in two directions therefore, standing as they do in the midmost state and functioning as they choose to function on the plane of the intuition or of buddhi. They cast that light into the world of form and know all things, interpreting all with correctness. They cast that light into the formless realms of the higher three planes, formless from the standpoint of man in the three worlds below the intuitional plane, and seek to understand, through steady expansive growth, the nature and purpose of that which is neither body nor soul, neither force nor matter, but which is the cause of both in the universe. Eventually, when the initiate has undergone the higher solar initiations and can function in the full consciousness of the monad, awareness of that which is divorced even from group form and from those nebulous sheaths which veil and hide the one, becomes possible. The highest types of consciousness 15 work from the plane of the monad as the initiate of lower degree works from the plane of the soul and uses the organs of perception, if such an unsatisfactory phrase is legitimate, and means of knowledge of which average man has no idea. They penetrate or include within their radius of awareness that sum total of life, consciousness and form which we designate God. These initiates of high degree then begin to be aware of a vibration, a revealing light, a note or directional indicating sound which emanates from outside our solar system altogether. The only way in which we can get an appreciation of the process followed in the expansion of the divine consciousness in man is to study the relation of the mind and the brain and note what follows when the brain becomes the intelligent instrument of the mind. Then study the relation of the soul to the mind and what eventuates when man is directed by his soul and utilizes the mind,